Hello and welcome to this brand new edition of Money Means Business. My name is Ahmed Nader, and tonight we're going to focus on the cooperation of Egypt with the African Union and the European Union, as we did see in the past week several presidential visits conducted and paid for by President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi to Kenya and Uganda in Africa, as well as the presidential visit that took place by the French President Emmanuel Macron of France to Egypt, and more specifically to be inaugurating the single university in Burj Al Arab in the governorate of Alexandria. We'll be shedding more light on those cooperation fields that took place over the past week, as well as the top stories that we have had seen today in Egypt. And to be shedding more light on those important topics, I'm honored to be having with me in the studio for tonight Dr. Khaled, Dahawy, the head of the accounting department at the American University in Cairo. Thank you very much, Doctor, for being with us tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Anytime. First of all, we'll be starting straight away with the main top stories that took place for Saturday, and they come through the presidential activities of His Excellency President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, as well as the activities of Prime Minister Dr. Mustafa Madbouli and Foreign Minister Dr. Badr Abdel Ati in Africa, more specifically in Eritrea. We start with President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, who met today with Lieutenant General Ashraf Salim Zahir, the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces and the Minister of Defense and Military Production, Major General Walid Arif, the head of the Armed Forces Engineering Authority, and Major General Ahmed Fouda, the Assistant Chief of Staff for the Engineering Projects at the Strategic Command Headquarters in the new capital. The official spokesperson for the presidency stated that the president reviewed during the meeting the status of the projects currently being implemented by the Armed Forces Engineering Authority in cooperation with various ministers, state agencies and the authorities across several service and developmental sectors, with the aim of monitoring the implementation timeline and ensuring their completion. Ambassador Mohammed al-Shinnawi, the official spokesperson for the presidency, added that the president also reviewed the executive status of the various cooperation protocols signed between the Armed Forces Engineering Authority and the number of ministries, governmental bodies and the agencies for the implementation of several service and developmental projects in many vital sectors. Dr. Khaled, the main theme that we have seen throughout this top story for today, the meeting between President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi and several officials, is maintaining and developing the infrastructure of the country and having big and state controlled assets and projects that were being implemented, and we need to be constructing as well as in the future. How do you see this important topic?
I think it's very important to note a steady stream of resilient economic movement in Egypt over the last years, focusing mainly on the infrastructure of Egypt. And it is very important to see that for the first time we're seeing the infrastructure being important and moving to the importance of infrastructure outside of the main cities. It is very, very important because in the past we've always heard of the infrastructure being affected, increased, developed and so on,
yes,
but ended up being the impact mainly Cairo, Giza, and sometimes maybe a little bit in Alexandria, Aswan, areas were touristic. But I think for the first time we're really seeing a real infrastructure development all over Cairo and Egypt, and this is very outside of Cairo to the whole of Egypt. This is very important because it is late, it is needed, highly needed,
yes,
to upgrade the rest of Egypt, because it makes no sense to just simply upgrade Cairo and leave the rest of Egypt at a very, very lower state of infrastructure.
Yes, and Doctor, allow me to be going to the other top story for today, and it comes through the presidential activity of His Excellency President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, who met today with Dr. Osama al-Azhari, the Minister of Endowments, Major General Amir Sayyid Ahmed, the advisor to the President for the Urban Planning, Major General Khaled Abdullah, the head of the Armed Forces Financial Affairs Authority, and Major General Walid Arif, the head of the Armed Forces Engineering Authority at the Strategic Command Headquarters in the new capital. But we'll be heading to the main report for the Money Means Business episode for today, and focusing on President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi's visit to Kenya as well as Uganda and the meeting with the IMF chief Kristalina Georgieva. We'll be having more details in the upcoming report. Stay tuned.
President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi affirmed Egypt's commitment to economic reforms despite regional challenges in a meeting with the IMF Managing Director Kristalina Georgieva in Nairobi. The meeting took place on the sidelines of the Africa-France Summit held on Monday and Tuesday in the Kenyan capital under the title of Africa Forward, Africa-France Partnerships for Innovation and Growth. The presidency said that both sides also discussed the economic fallout from the Iranian crisis and regional instability and their impact on Egypt and other developing nations, particularly regarding energy and food security in countries dependent on imports of oil and strategic goods. During the meeting, President al-Sisi also welcomed the successful completion of the 5th and 6th reviews and their approval by the IMF's Executive Board in February. The reviews are part of the Extended Fund Facility EFF, an $8 billion loan program approved for Egypt starting in December of 2022 until the end of 2026. For her part, Georgieva praised Egypt's strong political will and serious commitment to continue economic reforms to strengthen macroeconomic stability, achieve fiscal discipline, and improve the business environment. She stressed the fund's keenness on maintaining close cooperation with the Egyptian government in support of these efforts. President al-Sisi highlighted Egypt's proactive measures to maintain economic stability and fiscal discipline, foremost among them maintaining exchange rate flexibility as a key pillar of monetary policy and a mechanism for absorbing shocks. He emphasized the importance of international financial institutions and development partners playing an active role in providing the necessary support to enhance the resilience and economic stability of developing and least developed countries in facing current challenges. The Africa-France Summit, attended by the French President Emmanuel Macron, the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, and Chairperson of the African Union Commission Mahmoud Ali Youssef, aimed at strengthening the Africa-France partnership.
Welcome back. You're still watching Money Means Business. As I said in the beginning that tonight we'll be shedding more light and focusing on the visits by President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi to Kenya and Uganda, as well as the visit that took place over the past week by the French President to Alexandria in Morgan Arab to be inaugurating alongside President al-Sisi the Senghor University, so boosting the Egyptian bilateral relations with both the European Union and the African countries as well. But we'll be returning once again to the other top story that we were focusing on, as President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi met today with Dr. Osama Al-Azhari, the Minister of Endowments, Major General Amir Said Ahmed, the advisor to the President for the urban planning, Major General Khaled Abdullah, the head of the Armed Forces Financial Affairs Authority, and Major General Walid Arif, head of the Armed Forces Engineering Authority at the Strategic Command headquarters in the new capital. The official spokesperson for the presidency stated that during the meeting, the president reviewed the plans of the Egyptian Endowments Authority to develop the various real estate assets affiliated with the Ministry of Endowments, in addition to strengthening the mechanisms of cooperation with the specialized companies and the real estate developers in a manner that contributes to developing the investment system and introducing a new investment activity and fields of investment as well. Ambassador Mohammed Al-Shinawi, the official spokesperson for the presidency, added that the meeting also addressed the developments in the ongoing efforts to develop historic Cairo and improve the efficiency of its buildings and facilities. The president stressed the need to give this file the highest priority, including surveying and developing all the related buildings and facilities according to the highest standards in a way that transforms the area into a global tourist destination and an attractive cultural landmark. Dr. Khaled, to be developing the real estate assets owned by the state and more specifically by the Ministry of Environment, how do you see the importance of such a file, especially that we have seen activity over the past decade in this field in specific?
First of all, I think it is very important to understand that the endowment file is somewhere in the north of $100 billion, which is a huge file.
Yes.
Many people don't understand the value of this file because it includes assets of very, very high value that for many years sometimes are not kept at the best status. And therefore, to make sure that we benefit the best from these assets, it is very, very important to have first a very detailed analysis and inventory of these assets, making sure the status of these assets are developed,
yes.
upgrading them continuously, because without doing this, you're losing value of very, very valuable assets in Egypt. And I think this is the type of way that the government is taking now, understanding the value of these assets and developing them to the future to be able to utilize them in the best way possible. Many of them are historically valuable. Many of them are definitely very valuable for humanity as a whole. And making sure that we develop them and keep them developed at the best status is very important for the Egyptian economy.
Yes, Dr. Khaled, and remaining in the same field and with the activity of Prime Minister Dr. Mustafa Madbouli and following his tour at the downtown area for today, Prime Minister Madbouli heads through the Strait of Salah Salim Axis to inspect the ongoing development works in As-Sayyida Aisha and As-Sayyida Nafisa areas, as we did see today, following the conclusion of an inspection tour of several streets and districts in downtown Cairo as part of the state's plan to revive historic and Khedive Cairo. Dr. Madbouli, the Prime Minister, and his accompanying delegation proceeded through the Salah Salim axis to inspect the ongoing development in both As-Sayyida Aisha and As-Sayyida Nafisa. The visit comes within the framework of the government's efforts to revive the historic districts and upgrade the infrastructure and the traffic corridors in Cairo. While traveling along the new Salah Salim axis, the Prime Minister monitored the traffic movement en route and reviewed the traffic flow improvements. The project was designed to achieve contributing to reducing congestion and improving connectivity between several vital areas of historic Cairo. As you mentioned, Doctor, to be having a better value for downtown Cairo and Khedive Cairo, as mentioned here in this top story, and to be decreasing the congestion of traffic as well. How do you see the significance of those plans?
I really enjoyed when you started talking about traffic corridors,
yes.
because what we can see today, our always problem has been not the monument itself, but getting to the monument.
Yes.
The amount of time, the congestion, the tourists, or even us as Egyptians trying to get to these monuments, it becomes very hard to get to these monuments. If you cannot understand the time that you take from one to the other, it's very hard to plan for tourists, a realistic plan, because many of our tourists come to Cairo for 1-2 days, then step otherwise to any of the closer destinations and so on.
Yes.
So the schedule is tight, and with a schedule that's tight, it's very hard to plan without these solving the congestion problem. Second is actually the areas around the monuments. I think we are doing enough for the monuments now.
Yes.
It's understandable to understand the importance of them, to develop them. The problem has always been the surrounding area. Having bathrooms, having clean areas, having access, not being bothered by the beggars around and so on. All of these are really areas that need to work hand in hand with all of the congestion and traffic areas, because we've always had a problem. We have so many monuments and they're amazing, and
yes.
we are spending time in upgrading them. But the problem is always that the surrounding area. The tourist wants to come have a safe, healthy trip where he or she can find a bathroom, a clean bathroom to go to,
Yes.
can find a small bazaar to find water, to buy some of the relics, which definitely increases the spending in Egypt. There are these plans in the world where if you visit Italy, if you visit any of the other areas of the world, France, that has very
Yes.
high volume of tourists, you'll always find that the touristic attraction is not the monument only, but also the surrounding area that has to be kept, that makes the tourist comfortable. Also, the area around it is a spending investment place where you want people to come out of a monument to buy mementos or things, gifts related to that, and so on. So always having that clean place where the tourist will go out, he loves the monument, he wants to buy, or she wants to buy things that are related to that, then they spend more money than they're planned in the touristic package that they are in. So having these things complements the idea of developing and upgrading the monuments themselves, I think, are very important.
Yes, and this is a very important point, as speaking of tourism, we have seen in the past week the French president running on the streets of Alexandria. What can this do to us in terms, as you mentioned, the atmosphere? It's not just about the monuments, not just about the pyramids or the governorate of Alexandria and the beaches, but the atmosphere itself, the friendliness of the people being shown to the whole world.
One of the things that I've always talked about in university when we're talking about income of Egypt and so on, is the fact that I've always told them that the best ambassadors of Egypt are the tourists of Egypt. If you have someone who comes to Egypt and goes back to his or her area and talk about Egypt positively, it has a great positive impact. Of course, if they go back and talk negatively, it has a horrible impact. So it is really important to make sure that people who come to Egypt have a very comfortable and safe and friendly experience. So when they go back, they talk to their friends, and you have this event that goes all over the place. Not to mention a president. If you have a president who comes and is joyfully running, talks to people, he's taking pictures with girls and boys in the street, all of this is a lot better than billions and trillions spent in advertisement.
Yes.
I mean, if you spend on advertising, still artificial. I am telling you, it is a special atmosphere. I've taped this for you and so on. But when you have a realistic experience, someone who comes to Egypt, and this is why we tell people all the time, you have to be careful how do you deal with tourists. If you deal with a tourist badly, you have sent a bad vibe about Egypt. If you deal with him or her positively, you've sent vibe. And these are move on and on and on. So it's very, very important to make sure that tourists are happy. And we are a friendly society, by the way.
Yes.
But sometimes we take advantage of tourists in ways that doesn't help very much. And I think that is very important to start touristic education, explaining to people that when you take an extra pound or 10 pounds, you are hurting tourism.
Yes.
You're going to get 10 pounds extra, a cab driver will take it, or you'll sell something for 10 pounds more. But the harm that happens, especially that a lot of this is written in many of the books that the tourists would bring with them. If Lonely Planet and all these books, they come and you look at them and they tell the tourists.
Yes.
Haggle, talk to them. If they give you something for 100, pay 10. And if they ask for 50, pay 5, and so on.
Especially on social media now.
Yeah, and all of that is not needed. Actually, if you are able to generate a positive experience for the tourist, you have spent a lot of money in advertisements without spending anything. Just him or her going back to their country and saying, I came to Egypt, it was beautiful, I felt so safe, I walked in the middle of the night, there was nothing, I bought something and someone helped me, I wanted to cross the street and someone took my hand and crossed with me the street.
Yes.
The people who helped me across the trip were very friendly and they took out of their time to help me and so on. All of these are things that resonate with the tourist and develop into multi-million-dollar advertisement without you spending anything. So I think educating people who are going to be in contact with the tourists, and then Egyptians in general, because one of the things that is amazing in Egypt, I mean, I've been to many countries of the world that are supposed to be very touristic, and they don't speak any other language but their home country language. Here in Egypt, almost everybody speaks English. And every tourist is amazed by the fact that people speak English and are willing to help.
Yes.
They would go out of their way to help. And that is what stays with the tourists. And this is what is more valuable than millions of dollars of advertisement, to tell you the truth. I'm not saying instead of, but
Yes.
in addition.
This and that
Yes.
as well. And we will be shedding more light on the Egyptian-African cooperation. As I said that in the past week we have seen the inauguration of the Senghor University, which was named after a Senegalese late leader and the poet and the cultural icon. And we will be shedding more light. And today we have seen another impact and another development in this field as the signing of the Maritime Transport Cooperation Agreement between Egypt and Eritrea to enhance the logistical connectivity and the economic integration. During the visit of Dr. Badr Abdulati, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, International Cooperation and the Egyptians abroad, and Lieutenant General Engineer Kamel Al-Wazir, the Minister of Transport, to the Eritrean capital, Asmara, a maritime transport cooperation agreement was signed in the presence of President Isaias Afwerki of Eritrea. The agreement represents an important step towards strengthening the logistical connectivity between the two countries, supporting trade and investment flows, and opening new horizons for economic and developmental cooperation. It reflects the commitment of the political leadership in both countries to advancing bilateral relations to broader levels and maximizing the strategic advantages of the two nations' locations on the Red Sea. Dr. Khaled, in the past week, we have seen President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi visiting Kenya to be participating in the Africa Forward Summit with the French President Emmanuel Macron, then Uganda, meeting with the Ugandan President Yoweri Museveni, and today the Foreign Minister of Egypt, Dr. Badr Abdulati, in Eritrea. How do you see this momentum going on in the space of 6 or 7 days?
Let me start by saying that I see Africa as the backyard of Egypt. And it's a very, very important geographical destination for Egypt.
Yes.
Many dreamers have dreamt of invading the European market and the American market and so on. And they're correct, let's do that. But again, Africa needs us. We are part of Africa.
Yes.
And many, many times, for many years, we have forgotten that relationship. And instead, we have tried to go to other markets that we felt were more shining and sexy.
Yes.
But in reality, the African market is a great market for Egypt for many, many different reasons. Number one, geographical proximity, for example. There are no waters to cross.
Yes.
We can just go back on train and all the regular transportation modes. That's a lot cheaper than any other. Number two, it is full of natural resources, Africa is. And if you read about Africa, it is the core of most of the natural resources of the world. So that allows us access to natural resources. Full of cattle, and we need protein for our market. We've had many issues with that. Also, we have a lot to offer that market. We have a lot of population that we can export teachers, educators. I come from a university, and as you mentioned, we're starting a university in Egypt from the Senegalian university. At the same time, I look back into Africa and I see very few universities. Plus adding universities from Africa to Egypt, I see Egypt constructing universities in these areas of the world.
Yes.
I only see between here and maybe South Africa, they have 2 big universities there. The rest is very few universities that are big and renowned if you look at the rankings and where they are. So investing in education in Africa will help us a lot with all of the people we are actually graduating. At the same time, we have a lot of economic growth going through Africa. The requirements of the markets, African markets, that's not very politically correct, but it's a lot less than the European and American.
Yes.
Because we send things in European market and American market, we reject them because of the degree of problems, the degree, the purity of the glass and so on. They have very, very high standards.
Yes.
While the African market is a little bit behind. So a lot of our products can actually be...
Could be cheaper.
Exactly. And you can export a lot there. And if we look at if we look at the problem of Egypt has been always the export is a lot less than the imports.
Yes.
Almost half of the imports. So if we are able to generate an export to Africa, and I think it's all easier than our targeting Europe and the US, I think you get so many birds with one stone. As we said, resources, proximity, pricing, you can sell less standards than the US and Europe. You can increase your income from foreign currency, which is one of the pillars of Egyptian economy that's bothering us for many, many years.
Yes.
There's a lot of low-hanging winds that can come from working with Africa. And I can't find any problems, except that many countries already have figured that out, and many countries are moving into Africa, including the US, Russia, China, almost all the big powers of the world have moved
Germany.
into. Yeah,
Yes.
thank you. And so it is never late. And there's always the tie between Egypt that we are African, and we can work with the Africans to upgrade them and upgrade our own. It's a win-win situation. I think it's very beneficial for both sides. And it can work on so many different levels: education, export, agriculture, transportation. We can help build cities and so on and so forth. So it's an endless array of momentum, and I think remembering Africa, working with Africa is very, very important. The more effort we will put into working with Africa, I highly commend the President and the government for doing that, and I hope they can put more and more effort into that area, because it will always bring benefits to Egypt. I can't see any negative side to that, actually.
Yes, as you mentioned, Doctor, that Africa has become a place that everyone is competing to be working with and to be investing in, as we did see over the past decades, the US and Russia and China more specifically. But in the past week, we have seen the French president trying to be reaching more markets, bigger markets in the African continent through Egypt, after visiting Egypt and with the Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi on Monday and Tuesday. How can Egypt be benefiting from the sum of money, as mentioned, $23 billion that could be pumped into Africa?
Let me just say that we are the door of Africa to Europe. It's as simple as that. If you want, you can actually get very quickly from from Europe to Africa and Africa to Europe through Egypt. If we can create our hub, Egyptian hub for logistics there,
yes,
we have to still remember that we have the logistical program that we started, President Sisi, when he started with the Suez Canal. The idea was having a logistical area in that part of the world, and having that, and it's allowing it to move goods and services from Africa to Europe or Europe to Africa.
yes,
We could be simply the door for logistical trade between the two sides. Geographically, we are in the middle of the world at that point, and it will help facilitate a lot of the action between the two sides of the world, and we will benefit from it in terms of sometimes exporting, importing semi-manufactured goods, manufacturing them, sending over, and receiving natural resources from Africa, sending it to factories all over the world. Again, as you mentioned, $20 billion of trade is a lot of money, and the more we can institute ourselves at the center of that trade, the better we are, and the better we can benefit from that big cake of services and products going back and forth. Also, I find it interesting, and whoever is leading this activity must be commended, that he's bringing the French president to do that through Egypt and not through the other side of Africa that is French speaking, that you would expect them to go through Algeria, Morocco and so on, because of the language itself being spoken. So that in itself is a great, I think, an important move to satisfy that we can fulfill the demand between or the void between the two continents, Africa and Europe. And can do the same, I think, with Asia too.
Yes, and especially that the summit, the Africa Forward Summit that took place on Monday and Tuesday of past week, was the first time to be holding such a French summit in an English African-speaking country, which is Kenya, with the presence of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, who had met during his participation with the IMF chief, Kristalina Georgieva. How did you see this important meeting, especially that they have discussed the global challenges that are overtaking the world nowadays?
Well, it is very important to see the realistic view of the cooperation between Egypt and the IMF that has been spanning many years now. We have been funded by the IMF over and over in the past few years, with one goal, which is correcting the economic path of Egypt and developing a stronger Egyptian economy. The faith of the IMF in Egypt portrays a lot of confidence. They have been in the back of Egypt and the Egyptian economy over and over again. Understanding the, I want to say, the external challenges, because Egypt at the end of 24 and 25 had started reaching better numbers. We, for the first time, have seen inflation going down, interest rates being cut by the Egyptian Central Bank, which were very positive indicators for the Egyptian market. But everybody understands that the impact of the American-Iranian challenge is an external factor. We cannot play a role in stopping it, but we are highly affected by it, especially in the energy agenda and so on. So I think that the fact that the IMF is standing with and beside Egypt to keep sustaining and moving towards a better economy is a sign of trust from the IMF, is a sign of confidence in the resilience of the Egyptian economy, which we had seen the start of in 25, end of 24 and onward. And everybody understands the external factors. And I think the fact that we've had the last, I think, 7th and 8th revision, so on, all is going well, all is a good example of saying that we should be going and keep going into that direction, because we are going to get soon to the 2030, hopefully, point. And that's just one of the things I really like in the last, in general economic planning, is that we have said, here's a point of time, 2030, we want X, Y, and Z. We have KPIs for tourism, we have KPIs for exchange rate, we have KPIs for inflation, and we want to hit these.
Are we on the right path to be going to those targets?
I think we were. As I said, for the first time in many years, we had seen inflation digits going down. As I said, the Central Bank of Egypt actually lowering interest rates, which hopefully we were waiting to see 8 and 9 and 10% again. But suddenly you get hit by external factors. I'm not saying that we are immune from the world. We are like the rest of the world. But you get hit and you need to get your country back in the right track. And I think the fact that the IMF is standing beside us, France is standing beside us, Africa, as we said, all of these is how you get back on the right economic path. There is no one size or one economic effort that you can do. You have to play all the little gadgets until you get on the right track, and I think we're doing that. We just have to be a little bit more resilient against these external factors, Ukraine and Russia, again, the US and Iran. And these are factors that affect all the world.
Whole world, yes.
But when you are recuperating, it hits you hard. So unfortunately, we got hit. We have one of two choices, either to stay down or stand up and keep going. I think, from what I'm seeing, we're going on to the forward at the same track that I think is a positive capitalistic track, in my mind.
Yes, and on this positive note, Dr. Khaled Dahawy, the head of the accounting department at the American University in Cairo, thank you very much for being with us tonight on Money Means Business.
Thank you very much for having me.
Anytime. And this brings us to the end of this episode of Money Means Business, and I'll be seeing you next week.